Good morning, Wrestling Inc. Get up, get going. WrestlingInc.com. Joined here for this pre-WWE Crown Jewel edition of the Daily. It's Paul Pratt, a.k.a. Polio Del Mar. Paul, welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. Daily.
Wow, we're here. We're up early. We're bright and early before this international event that's taking place. And I feel like nobody better than I can talk about what it's like to wear a crown.
Oh, yes, the Queen's crown, the drag queen's crown.
Absolutely. I've won a few of them.
Yeah, sure. That's a fun tournament, too. I'd actually I would enjoy that. I would watch that tournament.
It would get more in-ring action and more in-ring time than the Queen's tournament.
Wow, a little shade thrown there. It really is something that the entire tournament combined, it's like, what, 20 minutes or less that the women got to put together their matches for this thing?
Significantly less.
Wow.
For the entire tournament, y'all.
Wow, rough look. Hey, well, you know what? We're going to get into Crown Jewel and more here today in the next half hour. Elizabeth Fox joining us today. Hey, Nick and Paul. Dave in, yo, unofficial pre-show for Crown J.
Absolutely, we love it.
Spark up a Crown J, my friend. It's going to be a long day today, that's for sure. So we got a lot to get to, like I said. Before we get to the show and talking Crown Jewel and all that, I want to once again start the show by just sending our best to Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Yesterday on the show, we knew he was going in for emergency surgery. Looks like the emergency surgery went well. He gave us a big old thumbs up over on social media. So just sending our best out to Jim today. Man, what a legend. I love Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
I on my Twitch channel, we just watched 5 years of Mid-South Wrestling, which was the entire from his debut, basically up until the time he left to go to WWF and become the legend that we know him to be today. So we became intimately aware of his sort of beginnings in the industry, and it's great to see that he's still around and doing well. Was shocked that he's going for surgery, but very happy to see that he came out of it well.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, he's tougher than a $2 steak. You know, I mean, Hacksaw Jim has seen and done a lot, and it's going to take a lot to take him down. But another bump in the road for Jim, sending our best. Very happy to see he's doing well. Later on in the show, after the news block here, you're going to get to hear my interview with Crowbar, ladies and gentlemen. Crowbar,
Awesome.
And love Crowbar. I didn't know he's one of only 3 wrestlers to wrestle in ECW, TNA, WWE, and now AEW, and a couple others like Ring of Honor. He's he's worked at literally everywhere.
Well, as long as his career has extended, there's probably other places that he will pop up and add to his resume before it's all over.
Yeah, I agree with that. Really great conversation. Just really cool to get the perspective of somebody who's been in all of those major locker rooms at the heights of many of those companies as well. So we're going to talk to Crowbar here later. Of course, he had the match with Joey Janela on AEW Dark Elevation. We'll get into that. It's going to debut at the same time I debated doing it later or whatever. If you're not watching Crown Jewel at 1 p.m. Eastern, go check out the Crowbar interview. And if not, go check it out after Crown Jewel, whatever works for you. And then in the mailbag, we're going to do kind of a quick Crown Jewel preview / question about the main event. So Crown Jewel themed mailbag here today. But news you can use, news will leave a bruise. We're going to start off with some Crown Jewel news here. Veteran WWE superstar The Undertaker is in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Rapper Pitbull held a sold-out concert at the Boulevard in Riyadh earlier yesterday to officially launch the 2021 Riyadh Season Festival. The Undertaker appeared on stage to kick off the concert, introduce the Grammy Award-winning rapper. Now, it should be noted that, Undertaker in 2019 also went to Saudi Arabia. I don't know if you remember, Paul, the giant.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there was this huge parade and there was this float, and Undertaker was on the float, but there was I'm not kidding, 120-foot tall version of the Undertaker. It was impressive and terrifying all at the same time. So what I'm getting at is he's gone over there and done appearances and been part of the Riyadh season around the time that WWE did Crown Jewel without actually appearing on the show. So I don't know that it's a guarantee he'll be on the show, but he is there. And, why not? YOLO. Why not throw Undertaker on the Crown Jewel show at this point?
I mean, he certainly fits in terms of the profile of the people that they wanted on this show. This reminds me of always reminds me a little bit of when a rich kid throws a really, really, really expensive birthday party, and they're like, they want everybody there. And they're like, no, I want, they're like, well, that person's dead. Like we can't really, we'll figure a way out, so.
Yes. Also,
being treated very much that way. So all the big names.
Yeah. And the child in this situation, by the way, maybe he'll have you done in if you don't come to the party, just a reality.
Absolutely. And may still have you done in even if you do come to the party.
Yeah, just a reality, everybody, right? I love the story this morning. I was kind of meandering through the news. It's like the top names took like private jets to Saudi Arabia this time while everybody else took the bulk jet just because, you don't want to have another one of those totally reasonable layovers for hours, days at a time where you don't know why you're being held up in Saudi Arabia. It helps to have your own private jet to, in those situations.
Yep. Like I need an escape route.
Yes. Escape hatch, or what is it? Like those little tiny rocket ships that are attached to the big rocket ship, the escape
pod.
Escape pod. That was the word I was looking for, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So Taker, he's in Saudi Arabia. I don't really know what you do with him other than just bring him out to wave his hat, say a couple things. I mean, obviously he's not going to wrestle or anything like that.
Well, I mean, come on now. It's WWF, WWE. Well, he could have another 5-year run of being tag team champions. Pair him with Haku. Look what they did with Andre.
Oh, fair enough.
Like series of tag team title runs where he never even left the ring apron.
Yeah. Well, a couple write-ins here. Eric Roberts, Undertaker paying for one of his kids' colleges, and one appearance, very likely true. Neftali Rodriguez, Taker got some money again. And then Dave in. He's going to choke someone at Hell in a Cell. Oh, in the Hell in a Cell match. We will have a Hell in a Cell match. Him coming out to kind of put over the winner. That's not a terrible use of Undertaker, I guess.
I'm the person who is not always afraid to, very seldom afraid to voice what I think about these things. And I'm going to just go out on, be outright and say the more I've gotten to know about Undertaker outside of the ring, the less interested I am in seeing Undertaker inside the ring.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It really is.
He should have remained undead.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and he's really cozying up with the Saudis here later in life. As
he's really cozying up with everybody that I would not want to personally cozy up with.
Okay. Karrion Kross, he blew up social media.
Who is somebody I would love to cozy up with.
Oh, sure. Yeah, what a handsome man, right?
What a beautiful couple. My God.
Yeah, for sure. So Kross releases this photo yesterday on social media. It's him. He's all cleaned up. He's got a nice suit. He's got Scarlett by his side. She looks great, and it really wasn't like it was the most traffic thing on the website yesterday. I think just because people looked at it and were like, why isn't this the Kross that we're getting? I mean, I've talked to Conan about working with Kross and Scarlett down in Mexico, and he was actually the one to kind of first put them together. And the reason he decided to let them be an act together was he was just like, look at them. He's like, they look like Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. Like, why wouldn't you want this beautiful Hollywood couple a part of your product? I'm baffled that they are overthinking this man that hard in WWE.
Again, Karrion Kross, of all the people that were coming out of the NXT call-ups and things of that nature in the last several months, he seemed just like the most no-brainer. He seemed like the most no-brainer since Keith Lee came out of that and was destroyed as well. He's perfectly packaged in terms of huge man, talented in ring, the gimmick works. It has like all of the look, all of the everything that we would stereotypically think that is anti NXT, right? Since they don't want short people, or they don't want this or that. And they still brought him up, and he has yet to hit on all cylinders. And they could have brought him up simply packaged exactly as he was.
Right.
And it would have worked from the minute he stepped into the ring.
Is it? I think it's just something with Vince now where, you're not allowed to just go from NXT to the main roster. He's got to put his fingerprints all over you, right? Like, hey, everybody remember Bearcat back in the day? God, I love that guy. Keith, be more like Bearcat. Like, it's whatever Vince it feels like doing. I mean, that's just it's very unfortunate, and I can't wait for that to no longer be the case where there's a more even bridge there. But for the time being, it's like what you get in NXT, you're likely not going to get on the main roster, with the exception of Riddle for whatever reason. And I wonder what happens with Hit Row Records and a bunch of the women. They don't change the women, really. The women get to come over from NXT to the main roster exactly how they were. It's always the dudes. They just do this.
Well, let's just be very honest here. Most of the women come over from NXT they don't care what they do during their 45 seconds on screen. They're like, yeah, be whoever you want to be. You're only going to get 90 seconds. So it doesn't matter. And there is conversation already that they're looking to pull people away from Hit Row Records because they see some individuals as bigger than the collective already.
Yeah. Let's see here. Neftali Kross should be on the way for a United States Championship run, but they ruin him without Scarlett and the stupid gimmick. Yeah, I really feel like the day that Kross shows up without the gladiator helmet and all that, everyone's going to rejoice. It's going to make Vince so unhappy. He's going to be so upset about it, right? Like it's a pride thing that he needs to make this work or whatever.
The weirdest thing is I don't that the Lord Humongous gimmick that has been around since the early 80s has always been, and for those of you who are not familiar, it's a character based on the Mad Max shows, but simultaneously was coming out at the height of the Friday the 13th thing. So as wrestler wearing a hockey mask. That was always one of my favorite gimmicks as a kid, but Kross exceeds that because he doesn't need that kind of a gimmick because he can speak and cut a promo. He can wrestle. It can be much more. And I just can't help but think of whenever he walks to the ring with his gladiator outfit on, it just is really, really reminiscent of the early Demolition looks, like the whole package.
Yeah.
Super reminiscent of that. And by the point being that by the time Demolition arrived, that was already a recycled look that WWF had gone with.
Yeah, for sure. And T-Bar and Mace ain't far behind that, either. Then you had the Bludgeon Brothers. I mean, he loves this dark kind of bondage look. I think maybe we're learning more about Vince, right?
Well, I think it's indicative of the S&M type of relationship he has with the television audience.
Okay. Hey, NXT. We talked about NXT and how talent is developed there and how they're brought to the main roster. This was something we just reported on this morning. I thought was super interesting. WWE, as they continue to do their 2.0 revamp of NXT, they have put up a listing on LinkedIn for just one. They're looking for a new NXT writer. Now, the note on the listing to the brand, WWE notes in the listing, the brand is looking to attract younger viewers, quote, built to appeal to a younger audience. NXT follows compelling storylines that defy expectations at every turn while playing out in front of the most passionate fans in sports entertainment, end quote. The job is looking for someone with 1 to 5 years writing for TV, film, or social media. Used to be 5 hard. I love that they've lowered it. They're like, you got a year in the business, you got some good ideas, you might have a shot here. Now, those who have written for drama, comedy, reality series, or live TV production were all considered a plus. Knowledge of WWE's audience was, quote, not required, but also a plus. Not required, also a plus to actually know what you're writing about, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that frustrates me from the perspective of a person who is a writer, right? Like we write, is that for many people who are like us, growing up to be a writer or a creative member of the WWE, like kind of think tank, may have been a dream for a lot of people as much as for other people wanting to grow up and be a wrestler themselves. And now to know that, kind of dedicating yourself to understanding or having a great history, a historical understanding of what the product is, doesn't mean anything to these people. It's a little irritating in that level. But at the same time, we are looking for things to defy expectations, like logic as well as follow through at every turn.
See, here's the thing for me. There's just a tone deafness to the way I think NXT is being presented. I've come at this from a bunch of different angles, but once again on Tuesday night, it's like little stuff, like the Van Wagner Kyle O'Reilly segment, right? Which was just about as throwback old school as you get, right? Like, we're just going to go out in the woods and find a piece of wood, and I'm going to take, I guess, this scrawny little kid, Kyle O'Reilly, in his goofy little bicycle outfit and make him a man, Van Wagner style or whatever. Like, if you're going for that hip younger audience, maybe not like vilifying their love of bicycle riding in favor of some drunk guy in his truck, right? Who Vince is like, no, this is cool. What you're doing is not cool. It's just like a little thing, but I don't think he gets. It's very obvious that who's ever writing this does not understand the youths of America at this moment.
Well, that's why you can imagine somebody sitting in a boardroom somewhere being like, using hip terms like from 5 years ago, saying like, I think that's what the kids today say. It's like, well, that's what they said 5 years ago, and you're still behind the curve. But at the same time, I have been pained to admit this on a recent like spree on my social media. I've watched exactly one episode, start to finish, of NXT since the rebrand. And it pains me to say that, because when I started doing these shows with you like 6 months ago or a little more, I was watching every show religiously. And what has happened during that time is, bit by bit, different shows for different reasons I've had to take a break from them by force. Usually, like, my schedule didn't line up or something happened or whatever. And there was no compelling reason for me as a viewer to, other than like the necessity to return to watching 2 hours of something that ultimately I felt like I wasn't enjoying. Like with this situation with NXT was the exact opposite. I really, really enjoyed NXT every single week. I tuned into it, unlike Raw and SmackDown, because I really enjoyed that product. And then they did a reboot. I was like, okay, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I watched it. Half the people I really enjoyed and stories about that show were gone. And then it was a barrage of people that I did not know or did not care about being presented so fast that I got no kind of interest or buy-in into them.
Yeah,
so,
and it's a thing too with like the barrage, as you put it there, of like new people and all these vignettes. I cannot wait for NXT to no longer be 50% vignettes. The whole show is vignettes. These are not 3-dimensional characters. These are 2-dimensional characters that they hope become 3-dimensional characters over time, which is the antithesis of the cool AEW product, where somebody comes in and you're like, I like this person because that's authentically who they are. Like, Vince McMahon did not come up with Darby Allin. Like, we need a kid who looks like he's from Hot Topic, and you take, random person, be like, you're the Hot Topic kid now, and maybe they're not a Hot Topic kid, right? Maybe the gimmick doesn't really click. You look over at AEW, there's authenticity in every single person on that roster, with the exception of like, I guess you could kind of nitpick, but like even still, across the board, I feel like a lot of authenticity over at AEW. You go over to NXT land, you got cartoony mobster, right? You got cowboys, you got a dude wrestling in a college C sweater. I mean, come on. Like, even Braun Breaker, who is great, the reason he's succeeding is he got the Steiner gimmick, and he's a Steiner. And even though they're calling him a Steiner, we all get it. And that's authentic. He's one of the very few authentic things on NXT right now.
I don't even necessarily need it to be authentic. And maybe if there's so many vignettes, maybe I need to return, because I actually really like vignettes when they're done properly.
Sure.
We're streaming Lucha Underground on my Twitch again. Lucha Underground, we started with episode 1, and they introduced these characters like through series of like these great, well thought out vignettes that are nothing about reality. These are like, and then he was a dragon and he came from space, or, whatever. But they're done in a way that is compelling, and they're done in a way that is palatable, like meaning that I only have to digest like 1 or 2 new characters. Like, I legitimately watched that reboot episode, and there were so many people that I didn't know who they were. And honestly, they didn't appeal to me. So maybe, again, I'm not the target audience for this. The same way I'm not the target audience for a Darby or a Matt Riddle, because I find both of them agitating. Maybe I'm not the target audience for these people. So if I'm not that target, that means that I'm not going to watch.
Well, when you're targeting 18-year-olds from the 1960s, actually, wait, I think that makes them 66-year-olds now or whatever. Like, it's just the target is off, and the product they're putting out there. And again, I think it's I think it's an authenticity thing, and I think that I watch the NXT product and I just don't feel an emotional connection to it for a lot of reasons.
Right. I mean, I think that in their defense, it is hard to feel an emotional connection to a product where you don't have any depth of relationship with most of the characters.
Yeah.
You know, like go watch a horror film where they basically introduce a whole bunch of one-dimensional character types. Oh, she's the dumb blonde. Oh, he's the mean jock. Oh, he's the this, the that. And they only introduce them as one-dimensional because they don't really matter, because they get stabbed, slaughtered, whatever, so fast. Like that's how they're like feeding you this stuff.
I see Muse Lover 1986 here. Adam Page, though, he's a cowboy, and I'm guessing like trying to say like, oh well, he's got a gimmick. He's authentically a cowboy. Like that's his light. Like he grew up on a ranch, right? Like this is who Adam Page is. Cowboy shit is what he does. Muse, like, yeah. If you're an actual cowboy, go be a cowboy. You know?
Yeah, I don't think it's about the idea of like disparaging any like idea of what it could be, but if it doesn't ring true, you know what I mean? Like that's when it becomes problematic. If it does not ring true, or it's people that we've known from other places that they brought in and completely changed over to be something different, then you do know that, right?
Yeah. All right. Lastly here, before we get to Crowbar, we'll real quickly dive in the mailbag to wrap up the show here. I didn't even write all the tweets and comments for podcasts out, but like, we're paying our bills right now on Tony Khan, Eric Bischoff back and forth. I mean, these two, like Eric goes on his podcast. Tony shouldn't be so outspoken. He's really hurting himself, right? And then Tony coming back. This is really glaring, coming from somebody who lowered themselves from the rafters on a motorcycle and declared themselves king of pro wrestling. And I feel like these two are like in. I can't tell if this is personal or if they're both in on it. I really don't care. I do enjoy watching it. I think it's really funny. But what's your take on Tony versus Bischoff?
I'm not exactly sure. I think that like I do have a sense of a growing belief that Tony Khan is increasingly buying into his own hype. I think that. And I think that I have a growing sense of like, remember I mentioned the rich kid who has the best birthday party? I get a growing sense of that as well. And I also have a growing sense that as like he buys into his own hype, and as hype around him grows, there could be an increased perspective from him, like, how dare you speak out against me? Like I'm the messiah. I'm changing pro wrestling.
Bischoff put out some tweet this morning that was like, the truth can be painful and it's about to get very painful or something like that. And like, it's like, again, I don't know if this is a work or not, because people don't talk to Tony like this right now, you know? And Eric went over to WWE, took the Hall of Fame ring, took himself off the table for AEW. And I'm not shocked at all by that, because, you know, having worked with Eric for like 2 years, I can tell you Eric is very dependent on that WWE relationship. Like, he makes money from them. I was very surprised he showed up at AEW at all. I would guess he was just trying to up his negotiating ability with WWE to get a better deal, which I would imagine he did. And so with no real intention of going back to AEW, I would think he's free and clear to say whatever he wants. I'm sure Vince, like a dog with its tongue hanging out, is like loving it. You know, like
somebody else is doing his dirty work for him.
Yes. And so Eric ingratiates himself even further to WWE. His podcast gets a shit ton of listens. He makes more money. And Tony Khan, like, yeah, the thing for me, and I know we're really short on time, but like the AJ Francis Young Bucks thing, I thought was fascinating, because, you know, this is a company that can take pretty much anything and lean in and make it work for them. And they lost. They lost that one for sure. AJ Francis ate the Young Bucks lunch, and the fact they had to hide behind Max Caster, I think, speaks volumes. I am interested to see if Tony can lean into whatever Eric's about to say, because, you know, I know there's a lot of passionate pro wrestling fans that would rather, you know, lean on Bischoff, you know, with his track record and, you know, the nostalgia they have for what he did. This could, I don't know, it's going to be really petty. It's going to drive a lot of traffic. It's going to make Eric some money. I'm just interested to see what happens with it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that um there's something always about the idea of somebody who, I mean, his entire uh kind of industry is built around a reminder that he basically had 83 weeks of success. That's
Yeah.
his whole career, 83 weeks.
Hmm.
And if you look at anything outside of that, the success rate is much more limited, right? So, um, you know, I guess that like in this situation, you butter the bread on the side that's paying most of your bills. And if you can gain a little traction and a little interest in anything beyond your 83 weeks, by just saying whatever it is you have to say about the other side, and they're not paying your bills anymore, go to town.
All right, Paul, thank you for joining me at the Top Show, talk all the news today. Thank you to Crowbar, and thank you for everybody for tuning in. I see Gary Lyles here. Is this new start time permanent? I missed it. No, it is not. But tomorrow I'm going to have an announcement. We may be changing, or we will be changing the start time of the show, but I don't want to get into it yet. We'll use it to close the week, a little bit of news. But we started early today because Crown Jewel is going to start here in 3 minutes. Real quickly, I'll run down the card. Here's what you can expect. We already saw the kickoff show match. Spoiler, Usos retained over Cedric and Shelton. Then we have Mansoor Ali, the King of the Ring finals with Balor Woods, the Queen's Crown tournament finals with Vega Dewdrop, Hell in a Cell, Rollins Edge, no holds barred match, Lashley versus Goldberg, never mind. Raw tag team titles, AJ Styles, Omos versus Orton Riddle, triple threat for the SmackDown women's title, Sasha, Bianca, Becky, WWE title match, Drew McIntyre versus Big E, and the Universal title match, which is now no holds barred, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. And I think the title match between McIntyre and Big E might be Falls Count Anywhere now. It's that or the Goldberg match. I wasn't really clear at all. It broke just before we started recording, but there were some stipulations added to it. So that brings us to our poll question here today. Who walks out as Universal Champion, Reigns or Lesnar? 72% to 80 or to 28% people pick Roman Reigns is walking away. I'm gonna take the non-safe bet and say Brock takes it here. But what do you think happens in the main event, Paul?
I voted for Roman.
You voted Roman? Okay, great, wonderful.
I do believe that they're going to continue building him to all the way to WrestleMania when he takes on The Rock. I believe that's the expectation.
All right, well, guys, gals, we are out of time here today. Crown Jewel is about to start. I wish we had more time to preview it, but we don't because we had such a great conversation earlier in the show. Paul, anything you want to put over here to wrap up today's program?
Hey, I'm just excited always to be back here with you talking about pro wrestling. Please do give me a follow here on Twitch. If you're watching on the Twitch channel, my Twitch personally is twitch.tv/Pollo Del Mar. Follow me also on Twitter, the Glamazon PDM. So let's connect.
All right, everybody. And I'm at Nick_Houseman. Come back tomorrow. I will be joined by Christy Olsen to wrap the week up. Also going to air the full audio. I did a Wizard World panel this past weekend about the new pro wrestling boom here in Chicago. So they sent me the full audio. I asked Raj, I was like, hey, it's really nice. It's high quality. I thought I sounded pretty good. Can I just run on the daily? He said, go for it. So a double dose of Houseman tomorrow. Me and Christy, and then me, Blake, and Mark from the Wizard World panel on the show tomorrow to close out the week. WrestlingInc.com, that's our home. Follow us on all the socials. Of course, the Wrestling Podcast goes live after the big shows, including today after Crown Jewel. Come back here. You're going to see more live punditry all about that show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I will talk to you tomorrow. And remember, if you winked, you didn't miss it.